In the beginning of the story, our protagonist is sort of telling himself about the most remarkable soccer players in history and the number given to soccer geniuses. But he himself, he is nothing like those genius. He's not fast either. Nor do he possess exceptional physical abilities. His skills are mediocre and his mentality is weak. And he's definitely not a remarkable player too. However, he have to remain on the field. For those who support and watch over him. To be proud of himself. Because even today, he must be misunderstood as a soccer genius. One morning, a young team of professional club for players under 17 years old in AC Fiorentina was having their practice game. Our protagonist was one of these players, and he recently realized something. That lies are similar to snowballs, they grow larger as they roll. At first, it may have been a small lie, but trying to cover it up makes you tell bigger lies, so eventually, even a small and insignificant lie grows into something beyond your control. If he hadn't shown off to Jiwoo back then, none of this would have happened. A day ago, he was talking to a girl on the phone while he was also playing video games. He told her that he's considered a soccer genius here. The girl on the other line was impressed that he's adjusting well. He bragged that he even scored 3 goals today. The girl said that he's really doing great these days, but he disagrees to what she said because he's actually not doing well at all. Our protagonist's name is Lee Jien. He enrolled at Juventus, a prestigious institution in Italy, but he transferred to AC Fiorentina almost like running away due to difficulties adjusting there. He's still a substitute player here, but at least it's different from his time at Juventus, and should he be lucky that no one gives him trouble here? Well, not exactly. It's just that no one bothers him, but he don't seem to have the talent to aim for the starting lineup, so it's not much different. The girl asked him if he's still listening. He answered he's still listening. He also lost the game. The noisy girl on the phone is Kim Jiwoo, her childhood friend for 10 years and also his only friend. When he was still in Korea, she always acted like his older sister and took care of him. She's annoying, but she's a friend he have grown really attached to. Well, that's why she still contacts him even after he came to Italy. He really feels bad for lying to her, but he doesn't want Jiwoo to see him looking pathetic either. But he was shocked when Jiwoo told him that she's coming to Italy too. He asked her again if he heard her right that she's coming to Italy. Turns out, Jiwoo got into a culinary school as an exchange student, and she's going to Italy, Florence, to be exact. And she's looking forward on seeing Lee Jien in action playing soccer. She told him that she's leaving in 2 weeks, which startled Lee Jien that made him drop his phone. The situation just got bad for him. He doesn't know what to do now. He's just a substitute player who can't even play in matches. He's in total shock right now. He must find a way quick before Jiwoo finds out about the truth. One of his teammates told him to get ready for the minigame, and assigned his position as second forward, but the coach said he can just play however he likes. Second forward is a player who moves between midfield and the front line, supporting attacks and scoring simultaneously. Due to their shadow-like role, they are also called shadow striker. He's not surprised that it's the usual instruction, it's always just play however you want. He guessed they think someone like him, a substitute for the non-main squad, doesn't need clear instructions. Well, he can't help it but play the given position. Even if he barely managed to escape the non-main squad and get called up to the 20-man main squad. Among them, only 11 players make it onto the field, the true starting lineup. The other 9 are on the bench, and usually, only 4 or 5 of them get a chance to be substituted in. In short, if you want to show Jiwoo that he's playing in a match, he needs to at least make it into the 18-man roster, excluding the goalkeeper. Normally, he didn't care much about being a starter because he thought he wasn't good enough, but now it's different. After coming here, he couldn't find a clear reason to work hard. But he really doesn't want to embarrass himself in front of Jiwoo. If he want to impress the coaches and make it into a game within the next 2 weeks, he have to get out of this non-main squad first. Well, for now, he'll just have to try something in the minigame. Who knows, maybe he'll perform beyond his abilities if he worked hard. His position is second forward. As a shadow forward, if he want to make an impression, he first need to aim for attacking points. The whistle blows and their practice match starts. The game has finally begun. First of all, he needs to avoid overly rough physical play. Since it's just a mini-game, the space is limited. The game's tempo naturally speeds up moving forward, so that means, even without the ball, he should always be thinking ahead. His teammate passed the ball to him, so now there's only one defender behind him. He decided to pretend to turn left, then fake right with a body feint. A feint is a technique that uses body balance to deceive the opponent. His feint was successful. He got past his opponent just like that. He sees the defense coming right back, but with so many defenders up front. But he still saw an opening for a pass. He decides to take it center forward. Center forward is a term referring to a specialized attacker aiming for goals in the front line. At this moment, the defender's eyes instinctively followed the ball. And during that moment, he was already thinking ahead. His teammate tells him to take it. He became invisible and ran so fast to get the ball. The other defender got pissed that he lost sight of him, because his focus was on the central forward. He forgot to set up the offside trap. Offside trap is a strategy to deliberately create an offside situation to block an attacking player's advance. Using the blind spot of the defense to shadow the center forward, his role is to infiltrate the opponent's formation, and that's exactly what shadow strikers do. He struck the ball, and amazingly he scored a goal. Well, that's one goal secured for now though. The opposing team couldn't believe what just happened. The coach just smirked a little, but his teammates were celebrating for his goal. Jien runs back to his position. Well, he thought that was just a lucky shot that even the defenders moved just the way he wanted. Still, scoring that goal, he felt like he have gained some confidence, maybe just a bit more. He thinks that maybe he should give it a shot again. But then the referee blows the whistle. Second quarter is now over. Official matches are divided into first and second halves, but minigames are divided into 4 quarters. The score is 6-4. He have already scored 2 goals and their team is in the lead. He'll just keep this up in the third and fourth quarters too, but then somebody called him. It was their coach, Coach Luca. He told Jien to take off his vest. They're making a team switch for him. Of course Jien just followed what the coach told him. He's kind of disappointed a little, 'cause things were really looking good for their team. He was lucky to have good teamwork and score a goal, but can he really perform well on the opposing team? He was about to return to the field, but the coach asked him where the heck is he going. He answered he's going to the opposing team, of course. But the coach told him to just come out of the field. He couldn't believe what was happening. It's something he didn't expect at all. Turns out, he was kicked out of the game. Well, if it's the coach's orders, there's nothing he can do about it. Well, today's been full of surprises. And nothing is happening the way he expected. Suddenly, he's now in the starting lineup. When Coach Luca called him out with that terrifying expression, he thought it was all over for him. But this is so sudden, he feels so nervous now that it's like his heart is about to jump out. Another coach called him again. He told Jien to relax himself and stop being so nervous. It was Coach Tony. Coach Tony apologized for calling him out all of a sudden. Jien answered it was nothing. Then he asked Jien if he can take the second forward position in the team without the vest. Of course Jien said yes, but he can't believe that he's being subbed in right away. Coach Tony told him to warm up a bit. It's still visible that Jien is still nervous right now because of the way he's walking, which worries Coach Tony. But he thinks the kid's going to be fine. Earlier, Coach Luca told Coach Tony that Jien seems somewhat different during today's training. He wonders what sparked the kid, but he was pushing himself really hard. He thinks that maybe he could finally be opening up his heart. Coach Tony said it would be great if that's the reason. But still, they shouldn't go overboard, and he told Coach Luca to just keep doing what he's been doing. Coach Luca answered of course, and he'll just watch without showing much interest. 3 years ago, the boy whose talent which rank clubs were so desperate. Ultimately, Jien was taken by Torino's Gioventù, but the contract was terminated due to difficulties adapting locally. As soon as they got the news, they contacted Jien. But even one word of motivation intended to boost Jien's confidence brought him severe stress and burden. At its worst, he was in a state where he couldn't even play in matches. Even so, Coach Tony decided to take Jien with him, and he decided to just watch over him until he opened his heart. Though Jien was stuck for 2 years, he never doubted his talent, not even once. The soccer genius who doesn't know his own talent, now, it's his turn to open the door and show it. And show the world the true extent of his talent. The game continued, and the second forward, whose name is Gino, seems to be having a rough game. Since they said it's the second forward position for the team without the vests, Jien will probably be swapped with that guy. The coach subbing him in, it's probably not because he believes in his skills, considering the circumstances, it's probably because one of the player on the field is having stamina problems. In short, it means Gino, who plays the same position as him, is having a tough time. He still wonders when will they substitute him in, and he already finished warming up. He tried to look at Coach Tony, but he looked away immediately when he realized he's also looking at him. Well, just being subbed in is already more than enough, so he shouldn't worry about the timing, and he should stop overthinking and figure out what he'll do once he's on the field. Suddenly, he felt something within him, as if he can see what's gonna happen in the game. He felt such relentless pressure that even when he doesn't have the ball, a marker sticks to him. And as soon as the ball comes, two players instantly stick to it. Because of this, the attackers are stuck in turnovers and isolated. So, he tries to put himself in the situation. From what he remember, Gino is a player with a similar style as his, so if he plays the same way as him, he's sure he'll be isolated too. For now, he should use the field more widely. If he can draw the dedicated marker and lure them to the side or back midfield, there will surely be cracks in the defense, creating opportunities for his team. However, even Gino, who's a better version of him, is struggling, so he wonders if he can really pull it off. Now he starts to doubt himself, and questions himself, can he really do it well? Suddenly, he remembered something from his childhood where his mother told him that he needs to do better. She told Jien to understand that mistakes won't be tolerated, that he must succeed, no matter what. Suddenly, he felt like he's going to throw up and questions himself, why is he suddenly thinking about training? Coach Tony also felt that he still feels an intense sense of burden. Rumor has it that Jien's burden is related to his mother's overbearing nature. So what he can offer as a coach to Jien is to trust him and patiently wait, allowing him to make his own plays. He suddenly held Jien's shoulder. He told him that if his goal is to give Gino some rest, there's no need to feel overly burdened. Then he told him that he can do whatever he wants in the field. Coach Tony thinks that this should ease the pressure a bit for him. It's about gradually opening Jien's heart. He answered that he gets it. Coach Tony thinks it's actually working. But he thought differently, that maybe they brought him in to balance the team's stamina after all. But at least, he feels that the pressure is gone now. Then Coach Tony made a familiar hand signal. He called Gino. He subbed Gino out to let Jien in. He thought about Jiwoo coming here next week, so it's not just a match, it's a main team match. Right now, he needs to focus on what he can do. He have to make the most of this opportunity and play in the U17 league match. That is if he don't want to embarrass himself in front of Jiwoo. The game now resumes. A frustrating series of passes continues, and there's no room for a forward pass. If this situation continues even after he gets subbed in, nothing good will come of it. Just keeping possession of the ball is hard enough. He entered the field with a plan in mind, but he doesn't know if it would really work. Now he realized that it's harder than he thought. There's no guarantee the marker will move as he expect. Suddenly, his opponent said to him that he thought they'd pull out some incredible joker card instead of Gino. Then this blonde guy insulted him and said someone without even a number. A ball boy level suddenly joined. He imagined the worst case scenario after hearing him say that. He imagined Jiwoo calling him ball boy and she asked him if this is the soccer genius he talked about. He can't afford that thing to happen. He told himself not to think weak thoughts. He needs to stay focused and execute the plan. He then runs really fast. The guy guarding him asked if he's giving up the attack to retreat into the defensive zone. Coach Tony was also curious about what he's doing, leaving the forwards area and dropping into the midfield. Maybe the kid is aiming to disrupt the defense line. Looks like his plan is working. He managed to draw one away, creating a gap in the defense. Now someone has to exploit that space. His teammate saw the space he created. His other teammate took the chance and make a run for it. Well, he expected nothing less from the main squad. Coach Tony was really impressed on what Jien just did, but he's really trying really hard not to show it. It was the empty space that was created by his movement. To block the opponent heading for that open space, because someone else will move. And the newly created gap is filled by one of his teammates. And if this chain of movement continues, sooner, a gap will inevitably form as he prepares to strike again. The coach thought about the phrase that says, blessings come to those who wait. A move that seems to see right through the field. He believes that this kid really has the talent. But who would believe that a player who hasn't progressed for 2 years could play like that? The stagnant game is flowing again, with GN as the catalyst. The ability to read the flow of the game, decide how to move and understand how to play, in order to win. He thought about passing it directly now. But this is his perfect chance to strike again. GN reached a different level of soccer intelligence. Coach Tony thought that if GN's talent awakens, it's not just Fiorentina's future that's at stake here. He believes that he'll grow into a player who can devour the world. Meanwhile, at the airport in South Korea, Jiwoo is about to depart to Italy. She was already eager to see GN perform in the field. She's just too excited to see him again, her soccer genius friend. In the next morning, Jiwoo was trying to wake him up and told him that this is not the time to be sleeping because they need to plan their date course. That woke him up. He realized it's already morning. He can't believe that even in his dreams, Jiwoo showed up to make a racket. It's another day of practice again. He told his dad that he's heading out now. The practice was over and he's totally drained. He thought that playing with the main squad is definitely on another level. But somehow he got to manage to assist. Now he's starting to think positively. That maybe he's going to be in the starting lineup for this week's game, but he's not sure yet. The next morning came and he's back at their training ground. GN already thinks that he failed to become a starter for the game. Well, he's not even sure if he'll even make it to the roster, let alone the starting lineup. Now he's panicking all of a sudden. Expecting to make the roster just because he played a bit in a practice match was greedy. Because there's one more roster announcement before Jiwoo arrives, so if he'll work hard, he'll definitely make next week's game. So as the week passes, they started announcing the starter, and first was Gino Calvani, second was Andrea Mondi, and finally, GN is the third starter, but that was just his imagination. Coach Luca thinks he's really good. Both the role of carrying the ball to the final third and finishing as the tactical point. GN is on par with position rivals Gino and Andrea. Coach Luca also said that leaving him off the roster this time might have been a unique advantage, which Coach Tony agreed. Right now, they need to help GN build his confidence step by step without feeling pressured. It's like trying to befriend a stray cat. The coaches laugh about the analogy, but Coach Tony thinks that suits him perfectly. Because of their accurate prediction for GN, he decides to smile a little, which is not looking good for his face. After their training, the coaches told everyone to gather up. GN's knees were still shaking. Well, he's really anxious right now. Their final training session before the game is over, but the roster for this week's game isn't out yet, and Jiwoo is already coming tomorrow. Coach Tony said that they've done good work. He announced that the weekend game roster will be notified individually, so they should keep that in mind. He seems bothered about the individual notification. Well, he did everything he could, and Jiwoo will be here tomorrow. And whether he get to play this weekend is entirely up to the coach's decision. He runs fast back to his house. He almost wanted to cry now. He's really hoping that the coaches will pick him. It's finally Friday and his phone rang. He picks it up. It already has a storm of messages flooding in from Jiwoo. She finally arrived and is now in a taxi. She tells GN that they'll be meeting in an hour. He's still clueless what to do now. He immediately runs back to his room. But everything in his closet is just sportswear. He regrets not buying some clothes beforehand. He thinks that maybe it's fine if he'll just wear a jersey because it's not like this is a date, so maybe it doesn't matter if it's a sportswear that he'll wear. It's just having a meal with his childhood friend, so it's just casual meeting just like the old days. He then asked his dad. He told his dad that he's heading out to meet a girl. He immediately stopped GN from exiting the door after he saw what he's wearing. Good thing his dad was there. Now he's all set up. His dad told him to do well, but he answered that it's not what he think it is. He's still clueless what his dad meant by do well, and he used perfume seriously over the top. He waits for Jiwoo at their rendezvous. He thought that maybe he came too early. He still got some time to kill. He thought that Jiwoo maybe still looked like a tomboy now. Then somebody calls him by his name. It was a girl and she apologized. She apologized for being a bit late, then she tells GN that his Nuna is here. He was so shocked to see her wearing a white skirt. GN was so nervous and told her if she's happy to see him. Jiwoo answered what kind of greeting is he doing and asked if he's not happy to see her. She slapped him slightly and asked where the heck is he looking. Jian smelled the cream scent in her hand. She told him to pull himself together now. He asked what's with her outfit. Jiwoo also asked if he likes it. He told her that he haven't seen her wear a skirt like ever. Jiwoo said that she's abroad now, so she got to dress up a bit too. She held his face all of a sudden. Jiwoo asked him if he's starting to see his Nuna as a woman. Jian's face blushed after hearing her. He shaked his head so she'll let go. Finally, they're on their way to eat, but he keeps on avoiding Jiwoo's eyes. Seeing Jiwoo teasing him and having fun, he thought that she's definitely the Jiwoo he knows. He asked himself if has Jiwoo always been this pretty? They arrived at the restaurant. The waiter finally finished serving their food. Jiwoo was so amazed after seeing the Italian food at the table. She complimented Jian that he's really become a grown man ordering all this by himself like an adult. He told her to stop saying unnecessary things and they should now eat. Jiwoo liked the Italian food so much. Well, he's just happy to see her again at last, but he just won't show it. He's also waiting when the roster announcement is coming out. He's so nervous that he could die. Then out of nowhere, Jiwoo asked him how many goals is he going to score. Jiwoo said that for a friend he's seeing for the first time in 3 years, he should promise at least a goal. Well, he told her that he's a soccer genius, but of course Jiwoo doesn't know his real situation yet. She also saw on TV how players score goals and celebrate and asked Jian if he does those things. Now he's really worried because he still don't even know if he'll get to play, so he really can't promise her anything. She asked again if he can promise a goal, but he can't answer her straight. She asked if that's a no. She guessed that maybe scoring goals isn't something he can just do at will. He's now worried because the mood is turning weird. Jian thought that he needs to come up with some kind of an excuse real quick. Then he heard something. He looked at his phone. He saw Coach Tony's message finally arrived. The thing that he waited the most is finally here. After they ate, they stroll around the city of Italy. Jiwoo asked him if he can get home by himself, which surprised him since he's the one who's been living here. She offered to walk him home, but Jian says she's just making fun of him again, just like their old days. She told him that he have really grown up, going home by himself. Jian told her to stop it already. Jiwoo waves goodbye and tells him to be careful on his way, and in Sunday they'll see each other again on the game. She felt that he's acting really strange these days. He's even giving her the cold shoulder after their date. As he was walking, he can't wait to see if he's in the roster. He took his phone out. Well, it was an announcement that they should assemble at the training ground by 12 p.m. on Sunday. He felt relieved after reading it. At least he made the roster. Even if he won't get to play, he can come up with some excuse. But then he remembered that he bragged to Jiwoo about how many goals she wanted that he'll grant it. He almost forgot about it. Now he's really screwed. He doesn't even know if he'll get to play or not. He really wasn't thinking about it and now he doesn't know what to do. But he thought of something, that maybe it would be better if he doesn't play at all. It might be less embarrassing to stay on the bench than to mess up out there in the field. But his lies are just piling up now. Still, even if he can't score a goal, he knows that Jiwoo will be there to cheer for him. He suddenly got fired up and said that he wants to play. The morning of the match day came. He woke up early before the alarm even went off. He's wondering if his body is just reacting because it's match day for the first time in a while. The weather and the place are the same as any other morning though. But he really feels that today is different. There's no guarantee that he'll play, and even if he can play, it could be the day his lies gets exposed. But it's clear today isn't just another ordinary day, and thought that this feeling isn't bad at all. He wished that the day would start already while she's dreaming about Jiwoo waving and smiling at him. He then stands up and wonders why is she popping into his head all of a sudden. He should just stop overthinking and move already to prepare for today. His dad was kind of surprised to see him wake up early. He told Jian that he made a sandwich and that he should grab it on his way. He was also surprised that his dad cooked. He stares at it. Well, it's still a sandwich though, and maybe it can't be that bad. When he tasted it, it was mint chocolate jam and mackerel. It was the most diabolical combo a person could ever make. His dad asked if it's not good. He answered it's delicious and said he'll eat it on the way. He decides to head out early and ate a banana on the way. He left the house and his dad told him to come back safe. He can't wait for the game to start already. His dad saw that Jien just left the sandwich there. Well, it was really bad and he should not cook like ever. He's now inside the locker room. Looks like all his energy has been drained all of a sudden. One of his teammates called him. He checks Jien if he's okay. He looks at him and asked why. Looks like he's having a panic attack. His teammate said it was nothing. He can't believe that the confidence he felt when he left the house is gone and he's so nervous now. Maybe it's just normal, because the last time he played a game was last year. Plus, since coming to Fiorentina, he haven't played in a single match, so it's only natural to be nervous a little. He tried to laugh it off because being nervous before a match is not anything that's new, so he decides to check his phone. He remembered that ever since people started calling him talented, it's like the ghosts of the past still lingers on him. The expectations others had for him were always so high, and he always had to deliver, making every match feel like a burden. He sees the photo that his dad took a year ago. Even now it still feels the same. His heart racing might partly be because it's been so long since his last match. But it's mostly because of the thought that he have to succeed. However, he feels that today is slightly different. Because back then, the burden he felt was very suffocating. He continues to check his phone. He saw Jiwoo's message. She's there already, and she reminded him about his promise to score a goal, that he should find her if he score a goal. He smiled after reading it. Today really feels a little different. It's like a redemption or something. Coach Luca finally said it's time for them to head out now. His teammates were also fired up and they're really eager to win. Someone also came to cheer for him today. He thinks that it's still some sort of a burden as he puts his phone on his locker. He closed his eyes to concentrate. He just really needs to do well today. But not just that, he wants to do well, and he really wants to do well for himself. The audience were already cheering even if the game hasn't started yet. He almost forgot how it feels to play in an actual game with audience watching. But he still doesn't know if he'll actually get to play. Some people noticed him that there's another player in the team, and saw that he's walking really weird. Meanwhile, Jiwoo was just there cheering for Jien. She wants him to know that his Nuna is here watching him with full support. The game started and it's already 15 minutes into the first half. And suddenly something happened. Gino almost scored the first goal for their team. For some reason, Jien got pissed that Gino was playing so insanely well today of all days. Now he starts to overthink again if he'll even get to play today. Earlier when the game was just starting, it was an intense battle from the start. Gino made a run and tells his teammate to pass to him. His teammate passed the ball to Gino. Then a defender immediately runs toward him shouting that he's gonna mark Gino. But Gino unleashed his inner blue lock. He figured out that they're planning to break through to the right. Gino sees the shoulder trapping attempt. He then switched his move to trick the defender. He made a move to the left. The defender was totally got caught by his reverse movement. He told everyone to push forward like this. This time they're sure to score a goal. Meanwhile, Jien's hope of playing is totally gone now because their team is doing great. Turns out their opponent is a bit weaker, but there's still a noticeable difference in strength. Then they made a 1-2 pass. The opposing team is in the lower group. He knew their team was in the upper group, but actually seeing it in real match is kind of different. Jien realized how good his teammates are, that he even questioned how did he even make it into the roster in the first place. The one who stands out the most among them is Gino, of course. With the opponent's wide defensive spacing, the second forward's area becomes incredibly free. Gino striked the ball, but it didn't went in unfortunately. That was really close. His teammate encouraged him to keep shooting. That also made Jien shiver because it's already 4 shots so far. He's still not sure if he'll get to play today. But despite that, he should always be prepared because he'll never know if opportunity would just come all of a sudden. As the game continues, Gino was hit by the opponent's elbow. Coach Luca complained to the referee because he didn't give a yellow card. Well, the referee gave the opposing team a yellow card for the foul, but Gino's okay and said it just grazed him a little. Because of this, Jien's hope of playing came alive. Maybe he might actually get to play today. Jiwoo on the other hand wasn't feeling the game. She's not sure if what's happening is fun or not. The score is still 0-0, but people are already cheering like crazy. She still wonders why football is really this fun. She remembered what Jien told her, that since their opponent is weak, he might not even get to play because he's the ace. Now she's kind of pissed that the team is seriously leaving Jien on the bench. Then something happened. Fiorentina scored the first goal, and it was Gino who did it. Jiwoo's curious if it was Jien's team who scored the goal. She thinks that it's really looking bad. The opposing team is already a weak one, and now they've scored. She freaked out of the idea that Jien will even less likely to play now, while Jien was celebrating that his team scored a goal. It was a quick opening goal, and it's the best scenario he imagined. No matter how he thinks about it, the only scenario where he gets to play is if their team secures an early lead. He thanked Gino for it. He whispered to his team to score one more goal. His teammate told him with a voice like that, he can barely hear him even being next to him. He apologized for it. Coach Tony noticed Jien's strange behavior on the bench. He's thinking of letting Jien play today. The first half is over and the score is 0-3 in favor of Fiorentina. Back to the locker room, the whole team was celebrating because they're leading the score. He thinks that his team did a flawless performance. Suddenly, Coach Tony called for their attention. He told the players that they must keep it up in the second half. Jien's anticipation also keeps growing. Then he suddenly asked Coach Tony about something. He asked him if it isn't time to put him in because the game doesn't seem like it'll be a loss, and most importantly, Gino is the ace of the team, so maybe they should let him rest because he seems really worn out right now. But that was just his imagination. Coach Tony asked him if he's feeling unwell, but he said he's all right. Then he asked if he can go to the restroom for a bit. Coach Tony got worried about his sudden actions in the middle of the game. He told Jien to go ahead. He turned on the faucet. He's thinking that he really came all the way to the restroom for no reason. He faced the mirror and told himself that he's really doing all sorts of things. Normally, this would have been a face-palm moment, but right now, it doesn't matter. It's finally time for the second half. The truth is, he really wanted to play soccer no matter what. Jiwoo also cheered for him at the back. And he's not sure if it's because of that anymore. Especially now that his expectations have become reality. Any minute now the second half will start. Coach Tony checked his watch. He called Andrea and Fabian all of a sudden. And finally, he also called Jien. He told them to start warming up. Jien got fired up thinking this is his chance to play. He really did his warm-up beside their coach. That's just really awful dude, and he's even happy that he tied his shoelaces really well. Coach Tony told him to do his warm-up on the side with the others. He's really doing all sorts of things to get noticed, but he honestly thinks that the situation isn't that great right now. Andrea, who is warming up alongside him, is Gino's successor and will soon move up to the starting lineup. He heard that he's a player who handles the ball exceptionally well too. He thought that their perception of him, who was practically neglected by the team, must be completely different. But then again, he have been a deadweight collecting wages for the past few months. He thought that maybe they're at least gonna send him in once just to make the most of it. Either way, he's ready to shine. 15 minutes have passed. He noticed that Coach Luca is signaling for a substitution. He sees that Coach Luca is coming to his way. Coach Luca announced for a player substitution. He anticipates who could it be. He thought that maybe it could be Andrea, or maybe Fabian, or a defender to secure the game. He anticipates Coach Luca's announcement. The audience also noticed that there's a substitution happening. The other guy said that maybe they'll swap out Gino because they're leading by 3 goals. So maybe Andrea is coming in, but then they noticed another guy who's wearing the number 20 jersey. Jiwoo smiled because she can finally see Jien in action. Her childhood friend, the self-proclaimed soccer genius, is finally gonna play his first match. Jien still can't believe that it's finally happening. But then he asked himself what's going on right now. Coach Luca shouted at him. He asked Jien if he heard him. He answered yes. He just really can't believe that he's being subbed in right now. Coach Luca advised him to play as he like without any pressure. He feels really nervous right now. The player substitution commence. He should be trembling like crazy right now, but he just wants to get out there and play. He really wants to keep the promise he made with Jiwoo to score a goal. Of course, keeping it would also expose his bluff. The match has resumed. Meanwhile, Jiwoo wants his teammates to pass the ball to him. She then shouts that they should pass to Jien because they've all had their chances to kick. She touched her chest. It's like her heart feels like it's going to burst. She felt a little boring earlier, but it has totally changed the moment Jien got on the field. She's not even the one playing, but she feels really nervous right now. Finally, they passed the ball to Jian. From the outside, he doesn't feel it, but on the field, it's really wild, he said. Simple passes back and forth feels like ticking bombs, and the opponents seems like predators. Unless he's a true genius, even a moment's distraction will get him devoured, so he needs to be careful. He needs to stay focused. The field may be wild, but here, he too is also starving. Jiwoo was amazed on what Jian was displaying right now. Jian runs and a defender follows him. He was confused that Domenico is moving into the same space, because that overlaps their routes. The other team's player said that two players with man markers heading into the same area. He thought that maybe they're slacking off just because they're leading. Jian's team made a pass. The other team was tricked and was shocked that they made a pass like that. They were shocked to see a pass in this situation. They tried guessing if they'll pass on to number 19 or number 5. Jian looked at his teammate. Turns out, number 5 was a decoy. They followed Jian quickly. But their defensive formation is now overlapping. Jian prepares for a play. The defenders were surprised on what he did. He's channeling his inner blue lock again. He then runs toward the enemy's goal area. Jiwoo was shocked to see how fast Jian can run. It was a pre-arranged play designed to confuse the markers. Coach Luca thought that the opponent, who normally left gaps between their defense and midfield, suddenly erased everything up to the back of the midfield. He wants Jian to show them what he's capable of. This is now his time. He sees that the space looks so huge. At this timing, if he subtly slow down the tempo, and scatter his gaze as if he's looking for passing options to the sides, they'll think he's looking for a passing lane, and maybe they'll take a step back and preemptively block the passing route. The goalkeeper noticed it and immediately shouted to his teammate to do something. Jian's there now in front of the penalty arc, but before the defender knew it, it was already too late. Coach Luca just smiled while watching Jian do his thing. And then, here it comes. Jian's very first strike in an actual game. The defender attempted to tackle him. But it was too late for him as Jian already kicked the ball. He knows this is gonna be it. Everyone was also witnessing something only a genius can execute. While Jiwoo kept saying that if he won't stop it, he'll die. The goalkeeper did his very best to block the shot, but just like they say, good defense but better offense. The simulation that Jian has been running in his head for 80 minutes has become reality. In the end, he kept his promise to Jiwoo. His teammates was also super amazed on what he did. They praised Jian for the milestone that he have achieved. He thought that it was a fantastic example. Or maybe it's because he's Korean that their praise is way too extravagant, and they're also saying that he's different. Coach Luca was also very glad and excited. He told Coach Tony that he was right all along about Jian's talent. Coach Tony told him to calm down already. That he should act properly because kids are watching. Coach Tony thought that Luca has every reason to be excited. He also thought that it was premature, but it was Coach Luca who insisted on putting Jian in. It was the first time he had seen Luca argue so strongly too, that they should trust Jian. He knows that Luca is probably the person who understands Jian's situation best. He praised Luca for what he have done for the team. Jian almost forgot one thing after his goal. He remembered that Jiwoo told him to find her first if he scores a goal. Now he starts to search for her on the crowd. He heard a girl shouting his name. It would be impossible for him to miss her like that. He decides to do something for Jiwoo. He stared at her while pointing his 2 fingers on his head, like a salute or a gesture. She was so shocked and flattered on what Jian just did. But he thinks it was a weird sign. It seems like he have created another cringe-worthy memory with Jiwoo. Later that day after the game was finished, Jian and Jiwoo are strolling again in the city of Italy. Jiwoo still believed that what Jian told her wasn't a lie. Jian asked what she means. She thought he was just trying to look good in front of her when he called himself a soccer genius or something. He answered, why would he lie just to look good in front of her? That's another lie. Jiwoo just laugh about it. Now he's bothered why she think it's funny. Then Jiwoo asked if he'll be playing in the next match from the start, which startled him. Because she knows that their next match is against a strong team. She remembered that he said today's opponent was weak. That's why he said he might not play, and now he regretted bringing that up. Jiwoo thinks that he'll be playing from the start in the next match since it's against a strong team. He thought that he just escaped one crisis, and now he's in another one again. Their next opponent is Napoli, and they're really a strong team. They're known for pushing up their defensive line to apply pressure across the entire field. As the third-ranked team in the group, this is a must-win game for them to secure a spot in the tournament, which is limited to the top two. And that team from Torino, it's an important match that they absolutely must win to compete for the top spot with Juventus, the first-place team in the group. In such an important match, he asked himself if someone like him who only played 10 minutes in a lower group game can even play, and again Jiwoo asked how many goals is he going to score. He answered he doesn't know if that's possible. Because he thinks he might not even make it to the bench, Jiwoo asked why it's impossible for him to score a goal. She told him that maybe he's not confident on himself. He just stared at her badly. He then brags again and said that she'll see it on game day. Jiwoo made fun of him and said that maybe this is what genius-level confidence looks like, but it's just empty bravado. He thought things would settle if he could just get through today, but it's spiraling out of control now. Jiwoo touched his head with 2 fingers and said she'll be looking forward to it. Then she imitated Jien's celebration when he first scored a goal. She laughed and kicked him. Jien got pissed and said he's leaving. Jiwoo apologized because she's just really having fun teasing him and asked if he's that upset, which Jien answered no. But he knows that this week is going to be really tough. And worrying won't change anything, so for now, he needs to focus on training. This week, he's positive that he'll definitely make it to the starting lineup. Monday came and their recovery training is now in progress. He only played for 15 minutes and now he's doing recovery training, which he thinks is embarrassing. Then someone called for all of their attention. It was Gino. He said that he just wanted to say hi to them before he leaves. Gino is leaving for another school. The other players wished him to do well out there, but Jien seems clueless about it and he's curious why everyone's giving some sort of a farewell greetings to him. He thought that maybe he's joining the U19 team, but he heard someone said that they'll gonna see him again soon, so he doesn't need to say goodbye, and they're sure that by the time he arrives there, he'll be on the starting lineup. He sees another player hug Gino. Looks like everyone seems to have grown really attached to him. He asked himself if he needs to say goodbye too, because he never even had a proper conversation with him. But then Gino called him, which startled him. He told him that it's a pity they couldn't get to know each other better. But he thanked Jien that because of him, Gino got promoted earlier, which confused Jien. He put his hand on Jien's shoulder all of a sudden. Then he told him that they should meet again. Jien asked himself what he meant by meeting again someday. And about thanking him that he got promoted early. He's still curious about all of it. But he doesn't care about that anymore, and Gino getting promoted is definitely a great news for everyone. If he can just surpass Andrea, he'll have a chance to be in the starting lineup next game. But looks like the heavens are helping him, so if that's the case, he just have to commit. And he's ready to give everything he's got in this week's training. The coach announced that everyone should gather around. He thought that he and Andrea should face each other head-on now. Andrea kicked the ball really hard to the goalpost, which startled the goalkeeper. One of his teammates thought that's some crazy power even for an inside kick. Jien's confidence started to drain again after seeing it. Meanwhile, Coach Tony and Coach Luca was talking about something really important at the office. Coach Luca said that he just dropped off Gino safely and Coach Tony applauded him for that. He thought that Gino was a skilled, well-behaved kid, so it feels bittersweet. Coach Tony asked if he's worried about it, because after all, Gino is more talented than the kids 2 to 3 years older than him. And based on skill alone, he should have been promoted a long time ago, which Coach Luca also agrees. It would have been nice to keep him in a bit longer, but the situation has changed now. Coach Tony said that it's time to focus on him. Coach Luca asked if he's talking about Lee Jien. Coach Tony answered who else could it be, and he also admits that Gino is undoubtedly a good player. But if they compare their potential, they have no choice but to side with Jien. Gino will advance to a higher class and learn there, while Jien will start building practical experience now. Coach Tony knows that it's the best choice for both of them. Coach Luca said yes, and the last match really confirmed it for him that Lee Jien has a higher potential than Gino. But he's a bit worried too. Coach Tony asked what it is. Because this time, the opponent is Napoli, so he's worried that Jien might lose his confidence. Coach Tony said that even so, selecting Jien for the starting lineup is an inevitable choice. and there's certainly some risk, but at the same time, there's no opportunity quite like this. Coach Luca asked what he meant by opportunity. Coach Tony answered that no matter how tough the opponent is, they're still at the U17 level, and he believes that GN's talent exceeds that level. So if he brings out his full capabilities and overcomes a strong team like Napoli, it will give GN the confidence he's been missing, all at once. And that shocked Coach Luca, so Coach Tony told him that they all need to pay attention to GN's performance. Since GN hasn't had a chance to actually play in matches, the club might feel there's a lack of solid evidence. Coach Luca asked what he meant by that. Coach Tony asked him back if he already have forgotten. He said that there's only a little time left before Lee GN's contract renewal. There was a man who's sitting in a computer and is watching the replay of the team's last game. He checked Lee GN's highlights when he scored a goal in the second half. He asked himself if he should keep a sharp eye on him. Turns out this man is the director of the Florence youth team, Mr. Paolo Rossini. The next day at Lee GN's house, there seemed to be a celebration going on. It turned out Jiwoo came over to his house to cook for them, and now she was teaching GN how to make great pasta because it was what she was good at. GN wasn't interested and was about to head back to his room, but Jiwoo got angry and stopped him from leaving, even threatening to unalive him if he left her. Jiwoo hit him with her elbow and told him she was trying to feed him something delicious, so he should just stay put and stop acting like a child. He complained because he thought Jiwoo was just there to practice her skills, but she didn't care and continued what she was doing, proceeding to put in the noodles. Then he noticed something from behind. His dad approved of Jiwoo and gave him a thumbs up, but in his mind, he wondered what his father meant. After Jiwoo finished cooking, they ate. GN's dad thought what Jiwoo made was really good, and it was just right that she was studying culinary arts abroad. Jiwoo appreciated his dad's comment on her cooking. Then he told Jiwoo to come over and cook more often for them, to which she said yes. GN's dad thought he was really loving Jiwoo's cooking because he was eating a lot. But then Jiwoo suddenly told him that he should score a goal this time because his Nuna made him pasta. It startled GN, almost making him spit out his food. He asked if it was really okay to talk about work while eating. His dad also said that he wished he could come too, but he was just too busy with work, and he apologized to GN for it. GN said it was totally fine because he understood his father's work. Earlier today, he also got a message from the team. He was going to be starting in the next match, and he couldn't believe that he was starting in such an important game. He kept thinking about his dad always apologizing for not being able to watch him play in the stadium because of work. But he understood his dad's situation. His father had even given up everything in Korea and came here for him. One time, when he had trouble at Juventus, he saw his dad get angry for the first time. His dad had always been his unwavering support, believing in him no matter what. That's why he could never feel disappointed in him, even though he couldn't watch his games. If anything, he felt sorry for his dad, but he promised that someday, he would make lots of money through soccer and spoil his father, but he just had to wait a little longer. Jiwoo suddenly asked again how many goals he was going to make this time, but he told her he wasn't telling her. She asked why. Then Jiwoo told his dad about GN's celebration after scoring a goal in his last game, which really annoyed GN, making him tell her to stop. GN apologized to his dad, saying that Jiwoo just talked too much, but his dad liked the way she was, especially her cooking. Jiwoo smiled and thanked his dad. While listening to them talk, GN thought about something. It was finally match day, but this time, he was ready. But honestly, he didn't know where this confidence he was feeling came from. Their captain encouraged them to keep talking and doing their best. Then he shouted, "Let's go. Viola." The word, Viola, referred to the team's purple color. They shouted a battle cry as the match was about to commence. GN focused his mind. He really thought he could do this. The game had finally started. Their captain reminded them to remember what they had heard during training, that their opponent would press hard from the start. But one of them already felt the pressure of the enemy as he looked at them. Even though he knew this was coming, he didn't expect it to be this bad. He passed the ball and told the next person to drop the line and not push up. They needed to move fast as their enemy was coming from behind. Coach Tony thought they were barely holding on, which left Coach Luca wondering. They didn't expect the pressure to be this strong, and now they were struggling just to avoid losing the ball, let alone building up plays. If this continued, their only solution would be risky long passes, but since their attackers were losing in aerial duels, this would put them at a disadvantage. Coach Luca asked what they should do if building up didn't work and long passes were risky. Coach Tony asked him back, "What do you think we should do?" Suddenly, Jien called his teammate who had the ball. Coach Tony said that someone needed to come back to receive the ball as Jien started sprinting in a different direction. Because even if their pressure looked perfect, it was impossible to have zero gaps. After all, a deep pressing opponent could still leave space behind, and Jien read it carefully. Even though it was a position where a teammate's pass could barely reach, it was still a narrow gap, said Coach Tony. Jien saw it as clear as day. His focus was just really different from these guys. He knew that the counter to a pressing strategy was a quick transition. And there was no point in holding the ball in their half for too long. He passed it to Bruno. Their opponents were surprised by what Jien had just done as Bruno was about to catch his pass. Bruno, who was a left winger, caught it smoothly and was now about to attack the goal. But even though he had already passed it to the wing, Jien couldn't just stand still there. He decided to map out his movement while watching both the marker and Bruno. He guessed Bruno's move, maybe he was about to do a cross. But knowing Bruno's style, there was no way he'd cut inside and shoot. After reading the situation, Jien decided to do his role, to feint as if he was cutting into the box. Their opponent's captain immediately shouted that someone had to mark number 20 because he was about to infiltrate the box. Jien managed to draw one defender deep into the box, which opened up a wider angle for Bruno's shot. Bruno realized it instantly and thanked Jien for the angle he gave him. Without hesitation, Bruno then did his thing. He shot the ball toward the opponent's goalpost. Jien stared at the ball as it passed him. He thought it was a curling shot with a spin. They were hoping it would go straight into the net, but it didn't go in. Bruno apologized to Jien for the missed shot. One of their teammates thought it was really close. But that didn't change the fact that they did great. Jien gave him a thumbs up and thought, that was really close. Their captain told them to get back and find their positions fast. But it was during this time that their opponent turned on the jets and struck back instantly. They didn't allow them to settle into position easily. They felt their offensive pressure instantly as the ball was moving at such a fast pace. Their captain also lost his marker as their opponents moved easily past them, like there were no defenders at all. Jien noticed that something was wrong. Their team was full of skilled players, but he asked himself why they were making so many mistakes right now. Even if Napoli was a strong team, they shouldn't have been struggling this much against them, and now they were about to score first. Their opponent threw an aerial pass, and at this point, it was too late for the defender. Napoli used a header to score the first goal. Jien thought that under this constant pressure, they made the mistake of losing their marks. And it resulted in the opponent's first score. Now that they had scored first, they could only expect the pressing to be as tight as ever, and changing the flow wouldn't be easy. And yet, there was a thought that kept coming to his mind. That he was going to carry this team on his back. He really thought he could do it. The score is now 0-1 in favor of Napoli. The game is just starting to get more intense. After conceding the first goal, their match became even more difficult. Jien thinks they're losing in the press, so they can't build up at all this time. Napoli, now in the lead, is running the game even tighter, making it even harder to pass. But somehow, they need the ball to move forward to make something happen. They can't continue like this. Because if this continues, they'll just be stuck in this frustrating situation over and over until the game ends. But then, they made a trapping error. He needs to think fast as time is running out. Suddenly, their captain made a move. It resulted in an out-of-bounds play, and they retained possession. He told everyone to get it together and that they must do something to make the game more interesting. The captain did his role in encouraging his players to play their game until the chances would come. This was not the time for them to lose heart. Coach Tony was impressed that he used hustle play to motivate his teammates at this critical moment. He smiled, seeing the leadership of his team's captain, and it surely motivated them. Jien also thinks that now's not the time to get distracted as he focuses more on the game. He knows that his chance will eventually come. They have finally broken through the enemy's press, and now they have to pass it forward. Number 8 called Jien to receive the ball, but he noticed that the defensive spacing in the back is tight. So in that case, this time, he won't drive it himself. He proceeds to use his teammates for the ball to move forward. Now they have completely broken through the press. All they have to do now is move past the midfield line with passing plays, and he smiles. But then he suddenly notices something. He doesn't know what's going on. He sees that the teammates who should be nearby aren't there yet. Coach Tony immediately understands his situation. Jien doesn't realize it yet, but there's a class difference even within the same team. It turns out the other players' movements can't keep up with Jien's expectations, meaning he just reads the play too fast. He's thinking that if he waits for them here, the timing will be too late. Coach Tony just observes what he's going to do in this situation. But for Jien, he's thinking about something and thought he must have completely lost it, but he doesn't care. He then sprints and moves forward, surprising their opponent's defense. He attacks forward and faces the defense head-on. One of them thought that Jien would wait for his teammates again and switch to passing plays like before. He warned his teammates to stay wide and secure the space first. But Jien had other plans. He made it past the first defender. They didn't think he was really going for a solo run. They immediately made a move to stop him. But he was just too focused right now. He knew it wasn't easy, but he realized this was his best choice at the moment. He finally made it through. Napoli's captain really misjudged it because Jien wasn't waiting for passing plays. Jien's plan was to keep breaking through their press until he got a clear shot. They did everything to stop him. They closed in so he wouldn't get near the box. The door to the goal was now closing as defenders formed a wall. He wasn't sure if he could still make it through. But it wasn't about whether he could or couldn't, because he was left with no options now. He had to break through no matter what, so he did his best. And even he was surprised that he was able to make it past them. Coach Luca couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. He thought Jien was just turning insane right now, but Coach Tony told him to quiet down. And finally, they were almost there. The goalkeeper prepared himself as he saw Jien approaching to attack the goal. It was a one-on-one situation now. He spread his arms to narrow down the shooting angle. But again, Jien summoned his inner blue lock as he prepared to shoot. The goalkeeper dared him to shoot. He told Jien that the near post angle was already closed off. But Jien was now locked in on his target. Without hesitation, he struck. The player who pretended to be a soccer genius made his own play. All those defenders he had passed through, it would be a waste if he didn't do this. He poured his heart and soul into that kick, hoping it would go in. He did everything he could. He then stood back up. He wondered if it really went in. But now, he saw his teammates smiling and celebrating something. He wondered what was going on and why they were acting like that. He looked at the enemy's goal post. And the ball had ripped the net. It was an insane run for Jien, and it ended really well. He couldn't believe that he actually did it. He scored their first goal. In the 40th minute of the first half, Jien's super goal happened, and the score was now tied. Coach Luca couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Jien faced the opponent head-on, alone, and scored a goal. He called Coach Tony and asked if he had seen it, which was ridiculous because Tony was standing right beside him. Even Coach Tony was in awe of Jien's goal. He asked how many meters Jien had broken through alone. Coach Luca estimated it must have been at least 40 or 50 meters, which was truly astonishing. Coach Tony thought that what Jien had just done was insane. After a quick 2-on-1 pass with a teammate, Jien launched into a bold and swift solo run. When the goalkeeper narrowed the angle toward the near post, he shot straight into the far post for the goal. What Jien did was a wonder goal, created by sprinting across half the field alone. Coach Tony then remarked that this goal was significant, leaving Coach Luca wondering why. He told him to look at the faces of their opponents. They were all shocked. It was clear that none of them had seen it coming. Coach Tony laughed as he pointed this out. Napoli's coaching staff were now baffled because they had no idea who number 20 on Fiorentina's team was. Coach Luca simply laughed at their reactions. He had expected Jien to be nervous since it was his first time starting, but he was flying out there. Coach Tony said that such things were to be expected. Jien was just playing the way he trained, but Napoli couldn't seem to handle him alone. Coach Luca believed Jien must have instinctively realized it was more manageable than he had expected. Coach Tony suddenly smiled. He was just happy to have the chance to watch his players grow in real time. It was thrilling and electrifying. That, of course, was the magic of youth teams, he thought, as he smiled widely. The first half ended, and the players were in the locker room. They were arguing about the mistakes they had made in the first half and discussing how they needed to improve for the second half. Jien thought that, to outsiders, it might seem like they were fighting, but in reality, they were just passionately giving and taking feedback, something that came naturally in Italian conversations. An empty can of energy drink dropped to the floor, but the argument continued. Jien thought they were just a bit intense in how they expressed themselves, or maybe they really were fighting. Either way, he wasn't sure. Suddenly, he thought of something else. He realized he had been out of his mind when scoring that last goal. Even he couldn't believe he had done it all by himself. He wondered if the goalkeeper had simply given him a free kick or if he had just gotten really lucky. But it would have been a different story if the shot hadn't gone in. Still, the plays he had thought about and practiced had actually worked. He may have overdone it a bit, and his stamina was becoming a concern. He considered the goal a lucky shot, but mixed with his ability. Coach Luca then called everyone to gather around. He warned them to be careful of counterattacks during the build-up, but Jien was thinking that the opponent hadn't really seen what he did. Coach Luca encouraged them not to be scared out there. And so, the second half began. Jien thought that luck had played a role, but he was sure it wasn't just luck that got him that goal. He knew he could do it again in the second half. Suddenly, someone tapped his shoulder. It was Bruno. He told Jien that he had been amazing in the first half and encouraged him, saying they would make something happen together in the second half. Jien was shocked to hear those words from Bruno, but it seemed to boost his confidence, and he suddenly felt great. Then, he noticed someone in the audience who distracted him. It was Jiwoo. She was there, but she wasn't looking at Jien. Her expression seemed strangely sad. Suddenly, he remembered something really important. He had forgotten about the celebration he had planned to do whenever he scored a goal, which was inspired by Jiwoo's pose the other day. He had promised to look for her when he scored and do that celebration with her. Now, he started to panic in the middle of the game. If the match ended like this, he knew Jiwoo's endless nagging would be intense. Not to mention the lies he had told her about being a genius. Now he needed to score another goal, no matter what. He suddenly yelled out his feelings, then quickly said it had nothing to do with a celebration for Jiwoo or anything. Coach Tony heard him and suddenly called him over. He asked if Jien was all right. Jien had assumed Coach Tony wasn't watching him, so he asked what he meant. Coach Tony told him he looked really tired. He told Jien that if he felt like he couldn't keep going, he could raise his hand immediately for a substitution. Jien suddenly realized he was out of breath. When had this started? Maybe he was just overexerting himself since it had been a while since he started a match. Now that he noticed it, his body felt heavy, and he was struggling to breathe. Coach Tony reminded him again to raise his hand if needed. From a coach's perspective, preparing a substitution was natural, but if that was the case, Jien needed to focus even more now. If he got subbed off, he would have about 10 minutes left at best. So, in those 10 minutes, he needed to score another goal. The referee signaled the start of the second half. Both sides had scored one goal each. Then, a defender suddenly stuck to Jien. He wondered what kind of defense they were using. It seemed odd because the center back was almost in the same line as him. Coach Tony already knew what was happening. Napoli had pushed their already high defensive line even further. Coach Luca observed that they were determined to score another goal no matter what. Both coaches understood what Napoli's coach was aiming for, but they believed he was making a mistake. With the defensive line pushed up, the space behind was completely exposed. For Jien, this kind of situation was an opportunity, said Coach Tony. Jien thought ahead and noticed that the opponent's attacking pattern was focused on the left side. Because of that, the opposite side was left wide open. If their defense could intercept the ball even once, the perfect spot for a counterattack would be in the space on the left side of the opponent's field. Then, he activated his instincts. They successfully intercepted the ball, and Jien immediately called for it. They passed it to him. The opponent immediately moved to mark him, not allowing him to turn around. As the defender anticipated Jien's movement, he was unprepared for what was about to happen. Jien passed the ball at an impossible angle, a pass to the left wing, headed for Bruno once again. Coach Tony smiled. He had expected nothing less from Jian. He knew the opponent would keep targeting the left side, so he had already planned to use the opposite space for the counterattack. The defender marking Jian thought there was no need to panic. He assumed they were just using the same counterattack pattern from the first half. He shouted to his teammates to mark number 20. They had already marked number 11, Bruno, but now number 20 was also cutting into the box. But Bruno was just a macro striker who only cut inside to shoot. Then Jian suddenly moved to the side. It turned out they had only been faking it. Jian ran past all of them. By the time they realized it, Bruno was already about to pass the ball to Jian. The defenders attacked Bruno, expecting him to shoot. But to their surprise, he didn't. It was a pass all along. Jian had the ball now. He took a shot from an almost impossible angle. As the ball flew, he anxiously wondered, will it go in? As the ball spun through the air, Jian watched it intently, thinking that he might have kicked it too far. However, he was wrong all along. The goalkeeper attempted to block it, but the result was clear. He had scored another goal. He stared at the ball ripping through the net, determined to remember this goal, unlike the last one. Immediately, he searched for the person who was the reason he had to score this goal in the first place. He spotted Jiwoo celebrating, screaming something, but he couldn't hear her due to the overwhelming noise. With his heart pounding, he prepared to do the celebration. He didn't even know why he was doing the celebration that Jiwoo had mocked him for, but strangely, he remembered the time he walked home with her, and that thought filled him with excitement. He looked at her as he performed the celebration, pointing 2 fingers at his temple. The match finally ended, and both coaches shook hands. Napoli's coach asked Coach Tony if he was going to continue playing dumb before inquiring about the player wearing the number 20 jersey. Coach Tony simply stated that he was Gino's replacement, but Napoli's coach laughed. Coach Tony recalled that Napoli's coach had also participated in the program that discovered Jian's talent 3 years ago. Napoli's coach remarked that it was obvious Coach Tony had been nurturing the kid and demanded to know where he really came from. Coach Tony explained that they had brought him from Juventus, but the opposing coach hadn't heard of the kid's name there and asked if he was a rookie. Coach Tony clarified that Jian was not a rookie and had been there for 3 years, though he hadn't been able to play for some reason. Napoli's coach found the explanation unbelievable and argued that with Jian's skill, he should be the ace of a team. Coach Tony simply responded that he was working on it. Napoli's coach still couldn't believe that Fiorentina had managed to snatch such a talented player from Juventus. He congratulated Coach Tony on the victory and remarked that his Korean player performed well today. This comment irritated Coach Tony, who immediately asked what he meant by that. It turned out that Napoli's coach had also been eyeing another Korean player, but that player was no longer a youth athlete, he was a monstrous defender. Coach Tony asked what he was planning, but Napoli's coach only responded that they should prepare for their next match, as the outcome would be different next time. Coach Tony told him to get lost. Before leaving, Napoli's coach asked if Jian had already signed a professional contract. Coach Tony didn't answer and instead told him to scram. As the opposing coach finally left, Coach Tony thought to himself that the man needed to learn his place. However, he also knew that after today's performance, Jian would be drawing interest from many others. Jian's performance had been nothing short of genius. He truly shone in the midst of challenges. In the locker room, the team celebrated their hard-fought victory over Napoli. They praised Jian for his outstanding performance, and he could hardly believe that he was now the centerpiece of their team. After all, he was literally the reason they won. Both of his goals had been spectacular, and to top it off, they came against Napoli, a team with one of the best defensive records in the league. However, Jian suddenly announced that he needed to leave. His teammates protested, telling him to stay since he was the star of the match and they were still celebrating. But they couldn't stop him, he had to catch up with Jiwoo. In the end, they let him go, though they wondered why he was always in such a rush. Maybe he was just really busy. Jian didn't leave immediately. Instead, he lingered outside the locker room, contemplating. Winning a tough match against a formidable opponent made him consider staying and celebrating longer. However, his body felt as if he were carrying a ton of bricks. He lacked the energy to revel in the victory with his team. Besides, someone was waiting for him outside. Jiwoo called out to him. She was the other reason he had to leave quickly. Greeting him with a bright smile, she teased him about how hard he had worked to win the game for the team. She even offered to carry his bag, but Jien declined, saying she was too small to carry it. She reminded him that she had been taller than him until elementary school. Jien playfully asked when that had been. He then took her bag instead and suggested they go, admitting he was exhausted from the game. Jiwoo, however, noticed that despite his exhaustion, he seemed to be in a good mood. He suddenly stared at her, realizing that he had almost forgotten the lies he had told her. He mentioned that the manager and the coach had complimented him after the game. Jiwoo asked what kind of compliments, and Jien responded that while he often received praise, today was different, it was more than usual. Jiwoo asked why that mattered to him. Jien admitted that even back when he was still in Korea, he had never been praised like this before. There had always been criticism before any praise. In the past, even when he did something amazing, no one would acknowledge it, yet he still felt good about it. Jiwoo asked why he was so moved by this, then assured him that from now on, she would give him all the compliments he needed until he got bored of them. At that moment, Jien realized something. There was one person who had always had his back, always given him confidence whenever he felt down. That person was Jiwoo. No matter the situation, she had always been there, cheering him up even when the odds weren't in his favor. It dawned on him why he had lied to her and why he had done everything just to impress her. She was the only one who believed in him, and he wanted to live up to that belief. He had lied because he didn't want to shatter it. And now, he wanted to keep doing everything in his power to turn her belief into reality. He just hoped he wouldn't get caught lying in the process. After all, his goal was to become the real soccer genius she believed him to be. Suddenly, he called out to Jiwoo and offered to buy her a gelato. Now that he was earning money from soccer, he could afford it. Jiwoo was impressed and told him that he had really grown a lot. The next day at practice, Jien approached Coach Tony, saying he had something to discuss. However, Coach Tony told him to do some runs first, which made Coach Luca wonder what was going on. He advised Jien to take it easy. Coach Luca then asked Coach Tony if something was wrong. Coach Tony replied that it was nothing. Jien had simply asked if he could use the training ground after team practice for personal training. Coach Luca was surprised that Jien had made such a request. Even Coach Tony found it hard to believe. Coach Luca teased him, saying he must have been moved when Jien asked that. Coach Tony then told Jien that Coach Luca would assist him after the practice match was over. Of course, they couldn't just leave him alone. Helping him was part of their job, and they were getting paid for it. Coach Luca agreed, but this time, there would be no early leave for him. Jien hoped he hadn't just delayed the coach's departure for no reason. He realized he needed to work on his stamina after this match. Not only that, but he also had to improve his dribbling, shooting, and every other aspect of his game. He needed to become a complete player. He had wasted too much time over the past 3 years, and now, he had to catch up through training. The next day, at the office, Coach Luca informed Coach Tony that Paolo was coming to watch their next game. Coach Tony asked if Luca had sent the video to him. Coach Luca confirmed that he had, but Paolo said he wouldn't believe anything until he saw Jien in person. Given his age, Paolo was an old-fashioned guy. Coach Tony suspected that Paolo was trying to lowball the contract. He told Coach Luca that they needed to prepare even more carefully for the next game. This was not just any match, it was one that could change the future of Fiorentina and, more importantly, the future of Jien. Jien was confused about why his other teammates were congratulating someone. They were congratulating Bruno for securing a professional contract for their team, and he thanked everyone as well. He wondered what all the noise was about, and it turned out it was for Bruno. Bruno promised everyone that he would treat them all this Friday. Everyone was jealous of Bruno, but they were also happy for him since he had finally secured a professional contract. Someone asked how much he was earning now, so Bruno told them how much he was making per week. He was doubtful at first about whether he should disclose it, but then he proceeded to say that he was earning 10 times his previous salary, around €2,000 per week. Everyone was shocked when they heard him, especially Jien. That was equivalent to all of their salaries combined. Jien couldn't believe how it was possible. Bruno explained that a player's weekly wage jumps 10 times when he signs a professional contract, and now he was thinking about buying the latest soccer cleats. Jien calculated his salary, which was around 200,000 won per week. Multiplying it by 10, it would become 2 million won. He imagined that if something like that happened to him, he wouldn't even know what to do first. Maybe he would pay for rent, groceries, and fix their washing machine. He would also buy his dad a car and treat Jiwoo to something delicious. When he thought about it, Bruno actually deserved it for being a good player. He then approached Bruno and congratulated him as well. Bruno thanked him and invited him to join the celebration on Friday if he was free. Jien said he would try to make time for it. Coach Luca then called for their attention to gather around because their training was about to start. Jien admitted he was a little jealous of Bruno's professional contract. Now he hoped to get good results in his next contract as well. He wanted it so badly. But knowing that he had practically been a salary thief for the past few months, he felt guilty about it and thought it was kind of wrong for him to expect anything like that. After the team training, Jien proceeded with his personal training with Coach Luca. He gave it his all during the session, inspired by his new goal of securing a professional contract like Bruno. Coach Luca challenged him to try to get past him. Jien used everything in his skill set, upper body feints and foot feints, but Coach Luca just laughed and told him that none of those moves were going to work against him. Jien quickly realized that facing an opponent at a much higher level in soccer was a completely different experience. Those moves had worked earlier, but now they weren't getting him anywhere. Coach Luca told him that those tricks wouldn't work twice against him. Jien now had to think of a new strategy because simply running wouldn't work against Coach Luca. He needed something that would throw off his timing. Jien finally came up with a new approach. He attacked Coach Luca, who anticipated a move to the left. However, it turned out to be a feint, and Jien went to the right. He thought he had finally gotten past him, but Coach Luca had already read that move. But then Jien executed another move, a step over, which caught Coach Luca by surprise. He thought Jien was going left again, but that rightward motion had been another feint, throwing Coach Luca off balance. This was Jien's chance to get past him, and he finally did so successfully. Coach Luca complimented Jien's skills, admitting that he had been completely fooled by that move. However, Jien thought Coach Luca was just overreacting and had let him through on purpose. Coach Luca said that Jien's flow was already good and asked if he wanted to go another round. Jien gladly accepted and vowed to do his best. He was grateful that his coach was helping him with personal training after team practice. Coach Luca advised him to incorporate more psychological feints into his game. Even though Coach Luca stayed with him to ensure there was no risk of injury and to control his training load, it felt like Jien had his own personal trainer. Not only was he getting specialized training, but Coach Luca also encouraged him to attempt more difficult techniques, which Jien eagerly accepted. Strength training, however, felt like pure punishment. At first, Jien felt more burdened than grateful, but since Coach Luca trained him so enthusiastically and without showing any annoyance, Jien was able to focus solely on improving. Jien was so grateful that he wanted to repay Coach Luca for all the help he had given him. But the intense strength training was exhausting. At some point, he didn't even have time to think about gratitude. He found himself swearing in Korean because the training was beyond tiring. After the session, Coach Luca handed Jien a bottle of water to replenish himself. Suddenly, Coach Luca smiled while Jien was drinking, which left him confused. Coach Luca asked if he was already tired, but Jien couldn't answer right away. Coach Luca proceeded to explain that strength training was exhausting but also the most rewarding in the end. There was a sense of accomplishment in it, and if Jien kept pushing himself, he was confident that his future self would be better than he was today. He knew that if he repeated this training dozens, or maybe hundreds, of times, he could truly become a real soccer genius, especially in the eyes of someone important to him. Jien suddenly called out to Coach Luca and thanked him for helping him that day. Coach Luca, however, asked what exactly he was thanking him for. Jien said it was for training him so hard every day. Coach Luca told him that training players was his job, and if they worked hard, he would be the one feeling grateful. Jien then murmured that he would surely repay Coach Luca one day. Coach Luca asked if he was serious about repaying him, then laughed, which made Jien feel embarrassed. But Coach Luca told him that if he really wanted to repay him, all he needed to do was perform well in this week's game. Jien immediately agreed. Jien then asked why this week's game was so important. Coach Luca explained that it was a crucial match, but he wasn't trying to pressure him. He just wanted to tell him that Jien would receive fair compensation for his efforts if he performed well. Because he had been a player once himself, Coach Luca knew that there were no coincidences on the field. He suddenly mentioned a deflected goal, which confused Jien. He clarified that there were no coincidences in soccer, everything was calculated. To take one lucky shot, a player must have taken hundreds of shots during training. He told Jien that nothing happens by chance and then tapped his shoulder. Coach Luca advised him to believe in himself more, and in doing so, others would recognize his true value. He explained that the world's best striker doesn't need anyone but himself. Jien smiled and said he understood now. All he needed to do was believe in himself more and keep those words in his heart. He had already prepared for the match with the mindset of pushing himself to the limit. But on the day of the match, something unexpected happened. Jien couldn't believe what he had just heard. Coach Tony asked him if he was listening to what he was saying. Jien said he understood, but he thought it was too sudden. Coach Tony declared that in today's match, the team would match everything to Jien's tempo. Jien would be responsible for initiating the team's attacks. Jien suddenly felt immense pressure upon hearing Coach Tony's words. In short, he would be leading everything in today's match. Coach Luca apologized to Jien because he hadn't known about this decision in advance. Jien couldn't help but panic because of the sudden escalation of his role. Finally, the game was about to start in the soccer stadium of Montebo. A man was yelling about something on his tablet, talking about holes here and there. It turned out that the man was Mr. Paolo Rossini, the director of the Florence youth team, and he was complaining about the money that was leaking out. He was accompanied by another man who looked like an executive from Jien's soccer team. The executive mentioned that the U17 team was unusually large this year. Mr. Rossini couldn't agree more because the funds coming in were limited, and managing it all was a real challenge. The man with glasses commented that handling all these players at once took a huge chunk of money from the organization. Rossini responded, saying that was exactly his point. As he checked the list of players, he came across Jien's profile, a 16-year-old player from South Korea. The man with glasses pointed at Jien, who was wearing number 20, and mentioned that he was the kid they brought in from Gioventu. However, Rossini dismissed him as a salary thief. The man with glasses asked what he meant, to which Rossini replied that a professional team wasn't a charity organization for players like Jien. Rossini continued, saying that they had brought Jien all the way from Gioventu, yet he hadn't played a single game. Not only that, but according to Rossini, Jien hadn't shown any improvement either. Jien's team was now wearing their away jerseys, and it looked somewhat awkward on him. The man with glasses countered that Jien had recently played in a match and performed well. It was against Napoli, a strong team. However, Rossini remained unimpressed, stating that it was only 2 games. Yet, in his mind, he was, of course, impressed with the 2 goals Jien had scored against such a strong team. The man with glasses argued that if Jien was as good as Coach Tony claimed, there was no reason to delay his contract. If they messed this up, he would surely be snatched up by other teams. Rossini admitted that was precisely why he had come, to see if the kid was truly worthy of a professional contract. The man with glasses remained firm, saying that regardless of what Rossini thought, he trusted Coach Tony's judgment. Rossini then asked what was so special about number 20 as he widened his eyes to observe how Jien would perform. Meanwhile, Jien suddenly began feeling uneasy. The pressure from the past few days resurfaced due to the change in his role. Even though their opponent today was a weaker team and he had done his part in the last game, he still couldn't believe he had been given such a significant role, thanks to Coach Tony. It was a lot of pressure. But there was no backing out now. He had to prove that he was a soccer genius. The joy he once felt when he overcame his limits, he wanted to experience that again. He had felt it enough while training with Coach Luca. Looking over at him, Jien raised his fist as a signal. Coach Luca responded with a fist signal of his own. Just as Coach Luca had said, all Jien needed to do was trust himself a little more and play with confidence. Now, he was ready to lead the team in today's match. Their team was on defense, and Jien immediately sprinted toward the opponent. As per Coach Tony's instructions, the team followed Jien's tempo, pushing up together. Jian's approach was to be careful in attack and bold in defense and pressure. That was the basis of this game's operation. They aimed to maintain possession and deny the opponent any chance to make a play. As a result, the opposing team started looking nervous. All Jian needed to do was score a goal, and they proceeded to trap their opponents. The opposing team attempted a pass, which startled Jian slightly, but it was an irresponsible long pass. There was no way their striker could reach it, and their team intercepted the ball due to that careless play. Now, possession was theirs. First, they moved the ball around in their half to observe the opponent's reactions. Jian noticed that a forward, who had been positioned in their half, had dropped all the way back to his own half to tighten the defensive line. The opposing team was clearly preparing to pressure their attack, but Jian was no longer worried about that. The opponents were in full defensive mode with no intention of coming forward. In short, they weren't trying to take the ball aggressively. Jian knew that there were two ways to break through a defensive line that was waiting like that. One was to draw the defense to one side as if breaking through, then quickly switch to the other side and attack. He decided to go for a high, long pass before immediately running in the ball's direction. He also knew that another strategy involved creating a crack in the defense with a dribble breakthrough. However, he didn't need to overthink which method was better. If he succeeded with the second method first, the first method would become much easier. He called for his teammates to close the gap. One of the opponent's defenders became frustrated, realizing that Jian's team was simply passing the ball around. He was getting impatient, wondering how long they planned to continue doing this. Jian was simply waiting for the opponent's defense to loosen up as a result of their continuous, slow attack. Then, at the right moment, he switched gears, turning on the jets and dribbling straight into the opponent's defense. As he advanced, Jian felt his field of vision open up. He also felt the intense gaze of the defenders. They realized he wasn't going to pass but was instead aiming to break through them. The defenders quickly adjusted their formation to stop him, but Jian ignored everything except the single defender in front of him. He knew that if he got past just one defender, it would become much easier for his team to attack. Using the tactics he had practiced with Coach Luca, he executed upper body feints to disrupt the defender's balance, causing him to falter. The man with glasses pointed out to Rossini that the number 20 player, the one they had brought from Gioventu, was doing something incredible. But Rossini dismissed him again, calling him a salary thief. He insisted that he was only there to determine whether Jian was truly worthy of a professional contract and to confirm whether Coach Tony's assessment had been correct. Jian was determined to prove to Rossini that he deserved a professional contract. He was about to create a play for their first goal. He understood that each reaction from the opponents would leave an open space. After bypassing the initial defenders, he found himself in a one-on-one situation with the opponent's fullback. However, another defender was closing in from behind. He needed to act quickly before he lost his window of opportunity. He faked a back pass, baiting the defender, then immediately switched into a direct cross. The defender recovered just in time and attempted to block him, but Jian executed a return pass. The defender was furious. He hadn't expected a return pass to be possible in that position, and now he was running around, chasing Jian in frustration. Jian faced yet another defender, using a fake and a step over to get past him, just as he had practiced with Coach Luca. He was confident that these defenders weren't better at defending than Coach Luca himself. Finally, Jian reached the front of the box. He debated whether to take the shot immediately or attempt a cross first. But he summoned his inner ego and chose to trust himself. With all the hard work he had put in over the past few days, he knew he could do it. He took the shot. The ball ripped through the net. Jian had scored the first goal for his team. Coach Tony smiled in awe, having expected nothing less from the genius. Team Fiorentino had struck the first goal. Coach Tony knew that Mr. Rossini was somewhere in the stands. He wondered if the old man still doubted his judgment on his players, especially Li Jian. Meanwhile, Mr. Rossini sat in shock, having just witnessed Jian's performance in real time.